This is Capital Games. I am the Wiz, and we are at another day we're having the gaming news roundup. This is for the dates of May 30th and May 31st. There is a story from May 29th, I think, there that I didn't get to because I started that recording early. So we'll get into that when that comes. But now, before we get to the news, I'm going to tell you more about the game I've been playing this week, and that is God Wars Future Past, the complete legend. It's what it's called on Steam and Switch, and I'm kind of glad this is over. I have put 3 hours into the game, and while I will say it's not bad, it's not necessarily a game I want to put a lot of time into. Like I mentioned on Monday's episode, this feels like a very basic tactical RPG. It reminded me a lot of Final Fantasy Tactics, but Final Fantasy Tactics had a little more depth than this, and it actually looked a lot better too. Just to recap, the looks and sounds of the game are not great. The gameplay is fine, but it's just not that particularly engaging or unique. So when you have gameplay and graphics that are not that great, you would hope that maybe the story might carry it, and it's not doing that. I've put about 3 hours into the game, and I am about ready to call it. I think I'm done, which is kind of sad. I wanted to play this game for a while now. I don't know what really caught my interest in the beginning to want to play this, but this has been in my backlog for a long time, and now that I've actually put a decent amount of time into it, I kind of wish I just ignored it. It's not really that great of a game. I got to a point now where I have to grind a little bit more to get to the next story beat, and I just don't want to put the time in anymore. The game itself is just not that interesting. There are other tactical games I can play that I'm more interested in that I would rather play. So with that, God of War's Future Past, you're done. I am going to delete this off my hard drive, and maybe if I'm really into the hankering of playing another tactical RPG, and it's not Final Fantasy Tactics Disgaea or Tactics Ogre, I might. That's not even true. I'm not coming back to this. I'm done. I'm finished with this. So yeah, with so many other great tactical RPGs out there, it's kind of hard to justify playing a new one if it's not that interesting. So yeah, I'm done with God Wars Future Past. I'm gonna say after 3 hours, it's not my thing. I'm not really enjoying it. So yep, that'll be it for that one. All right, so we are done with that, so let's get into the news that happened the past couple days. Microsoft's appeal against the CMA block of Activision Blizzard deal is set for July. Is a competitions appeal tribunal, and they're going to have either a hearing or decision in July. We shouldn't be waiting too long on this, which is kind of surprising because I was expecting this to be a little bit longer. But then again, I don't know much regulations, so we're going to expect a decision or an update in July for that. Next up, Konami has already confirmed that Hideo Kojima is not involved in the Snake Eater remake that was announced during the PlayStation Showcase. Not really a surprise with this, considering how bad the fallout was between Konami and Kojima when he left after Metal Gear Solid 5. So that's not a surprise at all. With that being said, it is kind of weird to see another Metal Gear game coming out, even if it's a remake and he's not involved. There are plenty of games that get remakes and remasters and the original team is not behind it, or original creator is not behind it, and it's usually fine. But Hideo Kojima is a very different game developer. He's the one I would consider an auteur out of the many of them. So to have somebody else directing or remaking it just seems strange to me. Are they just going to do a graphical update and maybe put some other mechanics in there? I don't really know, but I'm almost less interested in this because there is no Kojima attached or involved in it. So I will see how this turns out. I might give it a shot when it is announced, but I wouldn't expect anything for the next couple of years for Snake Eater, so that might surprise us. But yeah, it still feels a little weird that we're going to see another Metal Gear game that is a Metal Gear Solid game that is not attached to Kojima at all. So I think that's a little strange, but they'll have a lot to prove when that time comes. And the last story that we have is that Activision Blizzard wanted to acquire Time Warner in 2018. I don't know if you guys remember this time, but around 2018, AT&T sought to purchase Time Warner. but it came under fire from the regulators around that time as well. What Bobby Kotick said in this article was basically, if the AT&T acquisition did not go through, Activision Blizzard was going to step in and purchase it, and they had the funds and the money to do so. If you don't know what happened, AT&T eventually did buy it. That did not happen. What would have been interesting is what they would have done with all the Time Warner properties. I think Time Warner at that time still had an exclusive right to do Harry Potter movies and games. That would have meant that Activision Blizzard would have the Harry Potter franchise. They would have the Looney Tunes franchise. There is a lot of interesting things that Warner Brothers had that they could have used. Animaniacs. So that would have been very interesting to, as a what if, to talk about. What if Activision Blizzard bought Time Warner? It probably would have hurt them, because Time Warner ain't doing so hot right now. Well, that's not entirely true. They're doing okay, I guess. I don't think they owned DC either at the time, so they probably wouldn't have had DC at that point. Yeah, this is an interesting story. I guess was a profile that Bobby Kotick did with Variety that this came out of. So that's an interesting little tidbit. But other than that, like, it's not really surprised that Kotick was trying to acquire other IPs. This is a guy that, despite as much as people do not like him, and for good reason, he's an excellent businessman, and he knew that acquisitions is going to be a key thing for the gaming industry. So the more IPs you had, the better off you were. And what better IPs to get than from the Warner Brothers catalog, especially if they had Harry Potter. That was interesting to me, and that made a little bit of sense. Okay, so we are done with the news. Let's get to our top story, and is that the reviews for Street Fighter 6 are up, and the reviews are glowing. On OpenCritic, Street Fighter 6 got a mighty 92, with 98% of critics recommending it. Man, we are looking good this year when it comes to games. We had a stinker like Gollum and Redfall, of course, but other than that, we've had some fantastic reviews coming up. With Street Fighter 6, what it looks like is the gameplay itself is really tight, and the World Tour mode, critics really seem to like. There is some talk about how they don't like the monetization structures that's in the game, which doesn't surprise me. But yeah, this seems to be getting fantastic reviews. And for somebody who did not like Street Fighter V, I dipped off of that hard. I did not enjoy Street Fighter V, and I came off coming off of Street Fighter 4, which was a fighting game I loved. I adored Street Fighter 4. I got my first fight stick playing Street Fighter 4. But with that ending up not being great, Street Fighter 5 at least, it's really heartening to hear that Street Fighter 6 is turning out really well. And I've already bought the game, and that's unlocking on Friday. And of course, I also got Diablo 4, which is also unlocking Friday. But I've already said I'm going to do the weekly dividend on Street Fighter 6, and I'm looking forward to it. So I definitely want to give Street Fighter 6 a real good shake when the weekly dividend comes up on Friday. So I'm excited. The reviews have been stellar. I know people have been playing the betas and said that the game is in a really good state. That's going to be interesting. I don't know how serious I'm going to get with Street Fighter 6. I can't remember the last fighting game I got really serious at. It was probably Virtua Fighter 4 is one that I played all the time. Yeah, I love to see how this turns out, and I'm getting it on Friday, so I am looking forward to it, and you can look forward to me playing that for the weekly dividend on Friday. So I'm excited. Hopefully you are too. And I can't wait. It seems great. All right, guys. Well, that is it for this truncated episode of Capital Games for the Gaming News Roundup. Friday's going to be the weekly dividend. Saturday, me and Kim are reviewing Die Hard. You probably already know if you love or hate that movie. You probably love that movie. But if you want to hear our thoughts and Kim's thoughts on that, check that out on Saturday. It's Kim's first time watching that movie. Crazy, right? But yeah, that will be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if I'm doing something Thursday. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but if some big news pops up, I might do an extra video on Thursday. But we'll see what happens on that time. Well, that is it for this episode of Capital Games. Tune in next time where I talk about the news that is going on in the gaming industry. I am The Wiz. This is Capital Games. Talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you for checking out Capital Games, where we cover the business side of the video game industry. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed the video. You can also subscribe to the podcast if you prefer to have it on your podcast feed. And check us out on our socials and email us if you have a question, comment, or suggestion. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll hear from you next time.